Welcome, my friends. Today we will discuss another question on corporate finance. This is 2.14 from your IMA study support package. Okay, and uh, exam technique, first read the requirement. So, see, there are 7 requirements in this essay question. Okay, what is requirement number 1? They are saying define hurdle rate and explain why the WACC is often appropriate to use as a hurdle rate, right? So my friends, if you remember, in investment decisions, we have already discussed about it, hurdle rate. Okay, I will explain you again. Hurdle rate is the rate which we use to calculate the present value, if you remember. Okay, when we calculated net present value, right? So you go and you check the present value table, you check the annuity table, remember? So hurdle is like, hurdle is an English language word, hurdle. Hurdle means, there is a type of barrier. You need to cross that barrier. Okay, so that is the rate which we use to evaluate projects, right? To see that the projects, are they able to cross that barrier or not? Getting it? If they are able to cross that hurdle, that barrier, okay, so we consider them, right? If they are not able to cross that barrier, cross that hurdle, we don't accept them. So can anyone quickly tell me that if I increase the hurdle rate, okay, which is that percentage we talk about, which we use to discount the cash flows, if I increase it, what will happen to the present value? Can you write in the chat box? Remember, we did this in investment decisions. If I will increase the rate, what will happen to the present value? Okay, what about others? So when you increase the rate, the present value of the cash flows will decrease. Very nice, excellent. Okay, so the more the rate, the less the NPV, right? And the less the rate, the more the NPV. So that is opposite. And we have already verified, we have already discussed all the logics behind it, why it's like that. Remember, we have done sensitivity analysis, right? In all those investment decision essay questions. If you don't remember, go back and review those lectures on investment decisions. Okay. So my friends, anyways, let's discuss this in this question also. They're asking, this is a theory question. So they are saying, what is hurdle rate and why do you think, okay, WACC means weighted average cost of capital. Weighted average cost of capital, okay, is often appropriate to use as a hurdle rate. So two things we have to tell them. So if you remember, I told you before, what is weighted average cost of capital? For example, you have 40% debt and you have 60% equity. Okay, this is called weight, right? Which is more heavy? Equity in this case, right? 60% equity, 40% debt. This is called your corporate finance structure. Getting the story? Now, these are also called sources of finance. I told you before. If you see the balance sheet, you have assets and then you have these two components. So what is the accounting equation? assets is equal to liability plus capital, right? Or you can say debt plus equity. So I am trying to see that how many of my assets I am financing from my equity and how many of my assets I am financing from my debt. Getting the story? Now see, when you take finance, you have to pay some amount for that finance, right? You have to bear some cost, which is called cost of capital, right or not? So either you take a loan from the bank or you issue shares, you have to pay dividend, you issue redeemable shares, irredeemable preference shares, you issue bonds, debentures, loan notes, all these things. They have a certain cost. Getting the story? So what you will do is you will write all of these sources of finance line by line. Okay, some will be equity components, some will be debt components, and you will take their ratio. How much is the ratio in your total capital structure? Like in my example, I told you equity is 60% and debt is how much? 40%. Okay. Then you got to know by some calculation, some working, which we will see in this area basically, that how much is cost of equity. Getting it? So we got to know that cost of equity is 10%, right? Cost of equity is how much? 10%. Let me write here in the Excel sheet for you. So first of all, I told you that my debt and equity, right? What is their composition? Composition is this is 40% and this is 60%, right? Now I need to know the cost. Cost of, you can say cost of what? Cost of debt, cost of equity. So this you will calculate by using different tools and techniques which we will study. One technique we have already studied in investment decisions, which is called capital asset pricing model. Okay, please write yes in the chat box if you remember that capital asset pricing model. Okay, so capital asset pricing model is a technique to calculate cost of equity. One of the techniques to calculate cost of equity. Okay, so you have a formula, risk-free return plus market rate minus risk-free into beta. Remember that one. So we will do it again in today's class. We have to do it. Assume you got cost of equity 15%. Okay, cost of debt you got 10%. Okay, now I mean this is your interest rate with the bank, for example, 10%. This 15% is the rate expected by shareholders. Okay, this 10% is fixed. You will have to pay to the bank. It's written in the agreement. This 15% is not written anywhere. You have to calculate it by using different tools and techniques. Now you will calculate your weighted average cost of capital. Very simple. You will weight it, right? How to weight it? You will say, okay, this into this, right? And this into this, and then you will total it. So you will say my weighted average cost of capital is 13%. Getting the story? This is called weighted average cost of capital. Do you remember there is an inventory calculation method which is called, again, weighted average? Remember, first in, first out, last in, first out, weighted average. Okay, so same concept there also. So we see we are purchasing new material at an expensive price. So we will see the number of units, right or not? Accordingly, we will give the weight, right? I hope you remember that calculation. That's why it's called weighted. So see here which source of finance has more weight? Can you tell me in the chat box which source of finance has more weight here? Okay. Which source of finance has more weight? See, equity, 60%. This is more weight. So more weight will be given to 15%. Getting the story? And less weight will be given to the debt, which is 10%. Like that. Easy, right? So please write yes in the chat box if you got the idea behind calculating weighted average cost of capital. One thing you need to remember is, which I have not written here, we will do in the question. The cost of debt you take after tax. Okay, so for example, in the same question, if I say, okay, my tax rate is 30%, right? So you will come here and you will say 10% is there, right? But you need to take it 1 minus 30%. It means you will take 70% of this figure, because this 10% is before tax. So you need to make it after tax. Can you tell me, anyone, in the chat box, why we take after tax for debt? Yes. Can anyone tell me? Anyone? No one? Okay, tell me, this is tax deductible or not? Interest is tax deductible or not? Yes, my friends. Very nice. Interest is tax deductible, right? So I am multiplying this with 70%. So see, I got 7%. How much I got? 7. Instead of 10%, what I am writing, 7%. Why? Because I have to consider it after tax. So this is called 1 minus t. What it is called? 1 minus t. 1 minus t means 1 minus 30% when you will do. So remaining is how much? 70%, right? So this is after tax percentage remaining. Anyways, let's move on and do the question itself. So I hope it's clear with you. I was just trying to tell you what do you mean by weighted average. Okay. So let's see what is the answer for question number 1. They are asking you hurdle rate, right? Hurdle rate. So you will tell them that, okay, it is the minimum acceptable rate of return. Getting it? Hurdle. I told you, it's like a barrier. Minimum. You need this minimum, right? This is also called required rate of return. So, you know, when you will evaluate the projects, you will say, okay, our minimum acceptable rate of return is this much, and we will calculate the net present value based on this rate. Let's see that the project is able to satisfy us or not. Getting the story? Please note, this is not IRR. Can anyone tell me in the chat box, what do you mean by IRR? Excellent. What is IRR? It is the rate at which NPV is 0. Okay, so that is not hurdle rate, remember, huh? That is not hurdle rate. But hurdle rate we compare with IRR. If you remember, we did a question in which we compared the hurdle rate with IRR. Okay, so remember, we need to be below IRR, because if we are below IRR, NPV will be positive, right or not? If we are below IRR, NPV will be positive. If we are above IRR, I mean if the hurdle rate is above IRR, it means NPV will be negative. Because I told you, the more the rate, NPV will go down. Okay, so already at IRR, for example, IRR is 15%. And you are saying at 15%, NPV is 0. And then I am saying you know, hurdle rate is 17%. How much? 17%. It means when you will do the analysis at 17%, NPV will become negative. Getting the story, my friends? So this is the situation here. Let's see, in the question we have another requirement attached. They say explain why you will use weighted average cost of capital as a hurdle rate. Okay. So see, normally we don't use it. Focus. Weighted average cost of capital, when you calculate. So how you are calculating? I told you, you go and check your balance sheet. You say, okay, how much is my debt? How much is my equity? How much debt people are demanding? How much equity people are demanding? You do this calculation, you know, net off, and you get the answer. So, you know, you are having different type of risk in your industry where you are operating. Maybe less risky. Now you are exploring new opportunity, new project in new area, new sector, new country, new market, new product line, you know. In that case, you cannot use your cost of capital because your cost of capital is showing your risk. Getting the story, everyone? So the new project, you have to update this rate because the risk is different. Please write yes in the chat box if you got the point. So I cannot use my weighted average cost of capital for a new project which has different type of risk. Getting the story, everyone? Easy, right? So the question is, when can I use, because this is the question, see what they're asking you. They're asking, explain why you will use your rate, your cost of capital, as a hurdle rate. So you will tell them, if the new project which you are evaluating has similar types of characteristics, risk and rewards as per your current business, so you can use it. This is the answer. Getting the story? Very simple. If the new project is having same type of characteristics as your current business scenario, you can use your cost of capital. But if it is not, you cannot use your weighted average cost of capital as a hurdle rate to evaluate new projects. Please write yes in the chat box if you got the point. So how you will write it? Very simple. I have already explained you. So you will write here, if the proposed project is similar in risk reward to the rest of the company's projects, right? So we can use it. So WACC can be used. Otherwise, not. Like this, you can write. So this is the answer for question number 1. Let's see what is question number 2. They're saying calculate the WACC. Calculate the WACC. So this is the time you all have been waiting for, right or not? Because in investment decisions, I used to tell you that time will come when we will calculate the WACC. So this is the time. Let's see. They say Danny Chen, okay, so was recently hired as the manager of capital planning for this company. So you people are Danny Chen, okay. So a precision tool company located in China. Chen's first assignment in this new position is to draft a company-wide policy for the development, approval, acquisition, installation, and retirement of capital assets. Okay. In preparation for drafting the new policy, Chen has collected the following information. Very nice. The company uses weighted average cost of capital as its hurdle rate for approving capital acquisition. So they told you already company is doing this thing. That's why they asked you in the requirement why company can do this. Getting the story, everyone? It means the company is considering the projects which are having same risk and rewards as the existing projects. Okay. Now see, in exam, they can tell you, they can give you a scenario. Okay, the company is considering options, which have different types of risks and rewards as compared to the current projects. This, they are giving you a sentence also in the same scenario. But they said the same sentence, they said company uses weighted average cost of capital as its hurdle. So this is wrong, they are doing it wrong. So one of the requirements will be definitely that, what you recommend. Getting the story? So you will recommend this. You will say, as the company is exploring options in different areas with having different risk characteristics, so company should not use the existing weighted average cost of capital for those projects. Got the point, everyone? Okay, please write yes if you got the point. Number 2 point, the bullets, if you see, they are saying the company's targeted capital funding structure. Like I told you in my example earlier, 60% equity, 40% debt. Very nice. The before tax cost of debt, 10%. Like I think it was in my example also, which I did for you. Then they are telling, okay, risk-free rate is 7%. Historical beta is 1. What is beta? Remember? Beta is measure of risk. Beta is what? Measure of risk, right? So which risk? Systematic risk or unsystematic risk? Beta is a measure of risk. Systematic risk or unsystematic risk? So people are writing systematic risk. Let's see. So I have created for you this. I took this from your booklet. Now see, systematic risk is also called market risk. Overall risk, like changes in economy as a whole, such as your business cycle. It will affect market as a whole. Like Corona affected market as a whole. So Corona is a systematic risk, So for this reason, systematic risk cannot be diversified. I mean, no matter you have taken shares in oil and gas sector, healthcare sector, IT sector, education sector, you diversified, but still you will not be protected. Why? Because the whole market went down. Getting the story? I mean, 9/11 in the US when it happened. What's that? That's systematic risk because the whole market went down. Getting the story, everyone? So you cannot diversify it. You cannot diversify systematic risk. Got the point? What is unsystematic risk? It is called non-market risk. It is also called company risk, which is the risk inherent in the company, built in the company. So unsystematic risk is also called diversifiable risk because you can diversify it by purchasing shares in different types of sectors, which is called don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Right or not? So you can diversify unsystematic risk. Got the story, everyone? Okay. So we will also discuss about the certainty equivalent adjustments. Okay. Here, if you see, it's coming ahead in your question also in a while. We will come back to it and we will look at it again. Okay, see, they are telling you here risk adjusted discount rates means your cost of capital. So you say when your investment is more or less risky than normal for the company, you need to adjust your discount rate, right? We know this very well. So for example, beta is 1 because in this situation beta is 1, but when beta will be 1.5 for example, so it means more risk, more risk. So when you will calculate the percentage and you will multiply it with 1.5, the answer will be more, which we did in investment decisions. If you remember, we were evaluating 4 projects, so all had different beta, right? One project has beta of maybe zero point 0.8, one project has beta of 0.5, so these are less risky projects. If a project has a beta 1.5, this is more risky project because hurdle rate will be high. That's why hurdle rate is high, right? Because more risky project. So see, they are saying the discount rate is increased for riskier projects, which is above the company cost of capital. So your existing cost of capital, whatever it is, you have to increase it, okay, and decreased if it is less risky, right? So risk tolerance, they say, okay, certainty, risk tolerance is acceptable degree of variability in returns. A company with a high risk tolerance is willing to accept big risk losses, which we discussed. If you remember, we have already done the risk management area in your syllabus. So we talked about risk tolerance, risk capacity, risk appetite, all these we have discussed already. So very simple. I mean, if a company has high risk tolerance, they are willing to accept high risks because they are looking for high gains. You know, if a company has low risk tolerance, they will avoid taking big risks. Getting it? Because they don't want big losses. So they think opposite. Okay? Like when you do skydiving, some people they do skydiving because they want to take that challenge, because they feel that after taking this big risk, we will get a big gain. We will at least get one selfie video, which we can share on social media. Some people they will say, no, we cannot risk our life for this thing. We don't care. I mean, no need for that. It's a big loss if you lost your life somewhere in the sky. Very nice. Okay, my friends. So let's go back to our question and move on. So we are talking about WACC now. We want to calculate WACC. Okay. Then there's a expected return on all common stocks is 13%. The company tax rate is 40%. So they have given us enough information to calculate cost of capital. Please note a point. Whenever they give you risk-free rate, you will use capital asset pricing model. Please make a note of it. Whenever they give you risk-free rate, we will use which method? Capital asset pricing model. As I said, to calculate cost of equity, there are multiple methods. So it depends on the information given which method we will use. Like in this question, they are giving you risk-free rate. So we can use capital asset pricing model because it is talking about risk-free rate in the formula. Okay, let's start. So what we will do, basically when you are calculating the weighted average cost of capital, you need 4 things, right? Which I showed you. First of all, you need the composition of debt and equity. Then you need the cost of equity and cost of debt. Remember, the cost of debt, we will do it 1 minus t. Remember, 1 minus x. So don't forget to do 1 minus t for cost of debt. So first of all, let us calculate the cost of equity. Can anyone remind me in the chat box what was the formula of capital asset pricing model? Yes, can anyone remind me what is the formula for capital asset pricing model? Okay, what about others? Very nice. It's correct. You have written correctly. So this is what one of the students wrote in the chat box. I am copy pasting here. Okay. So basically, if you see here, RF like risk-free rate, okay, plus beta multiplied by the market rate minus risk-free rate. This is called risk premium. Getting the story, my friends? So risk-free rate plus the market return minus risk-free rate multiply by beta. Okay, beta, you know very well how we write. We discussed in investment decisions. Let me show you again how we write it. So beta we write like this. Something like this we write. Okay. Okay. So anyways, because in exam also you are using a notepad, so you can mention like this B, no problem. Okay. So how much is the risk-free rate, my friends? 7%. How much is the market rate? This is the market rate they gave you below, 13%. Okay, expected return on all common stocks is 13%. So you will say 7%, 13%, and 1. This is the beta. So I am saying 7% plus 13% minus 7% multiply by 1. Right? Can anyone tell me how much will come? Yes, my friends. So I think it will come 13%. Right or not? 13% will come. Okay. Uh, now, my friends, see, focus, please. When you are saying beta is 1, remember we discussed what do you mean by beta is 1? It means if the stock market is going up by 10%, my stock is also going up by 10%, or vice versa. If the stock market is going down by 10%, my stock is also going down by 10% over a certain period of time. It means my stock is acting as per the market. Getting the story? If the market is going up by 10%, my stock is going up by only 5%. Little effect. So beta will be less than 1, right? Maybe 0.5 you can say. If market is going up by 10%, my stock is going up by 20%. So see, my stock's variability is more than the market. So 2. Getting the story, everyone? So what is 1? 1 means your stock is operating as per the market. Exactly. Okay, please write yes in the chat box if you got the point. So we got the cost of, I'm drawing it again. This is debt. This is equity. So what is the composition? It is 40% debt and 60% equity, right? What is cost of, right? Cost of debt and cost of equity, we already calculated. It is 13%. So I'm writing here. Cost of debt we need after tax. Okay. So how much was cost of debt? See, they say before tax. Before tax. How much? 10%. And how much is tax? 40%. So you will say 10%, 1 minus 40%. Basically, you will multiply with 60%. Got the story, everyone? So I will say, okay, 10% into 60%, which will be 6%. This is called after tax. Now what you will do, you will take this, multiply with this, and also here, same thing, and then add both of them together. This is your answer, my friends. What is the answer? 10.2% is my answer. So this is your weighted average cost of capital, 10.2%. Okay, please let me know if you have any issue or everything is okay. So please write okay or yes in the chat box. Okay, also tell me this is easy or difficult. This topic is easy or difficult, my friends? Very nice. Some people are writing very easy. This is what I like. So my friends, the topic is very easy. Huh? Don't insult the topic by saying that it is easy. It is not easy. It is very easy. Okay? Very nice. Let's move ahead and let's go to the third one. They say, explain the importance of beta in the capital asset pricing model and explain the importance of beta in the company's cost of capital. Getting the story, everyone? Very interesting question. They say, why you use beta in capital asset pricing model, first of all? And I mean, what's the relationship between beta and cost of capital? Okay, two things. And see, whenever and is there, you need to be careful. Now we will write the answer. You know it is very well already. So we will write first of all about the beta in short, that we say, okay, beta is a measure of the movement of the price of stock as compared to the movement of the market as a whole, right? So this is beta. You know this very well. I have explained many times now. Then we say beta is important to CAPM model because it adjusts the expected return. Remember what is expected return, which we write in the bracket? The expected return for the which risk? Remember we just discussed systematic risk or unsystematic risk. So people are writing very nice, excellent, my friends. Beta will tackle the systematic risk because systematic risk cannot be diversified. Remember, systematic risk cannot be diversified because it is the risk of market as a whole. And if you see here in the definition already we wrote as a whole. As a whole, when I'm saying as a whole, it means I'm talking about systematic risk. I'm talking about market risk, which cannot be diversified. Right or not, everyone? I hope everyone is clear now. What do you mean by diversification? Diversification means don't keep all your eggs in one basket. So don't purchase all the stock in oil and gas sector. Purchase some in oil and gas, some in healthcare, some in manufacturing sector, you know. This is called diversification. So if one sector will go down, you will not suffer a lot because of that sector. Getting the story, everyone? So beta is important to CAPM model because it adjusts the expected return for the systematic risk. For the, I am writing like this only for you, so you can understand the importance of this wording here. Don't write like this in exam. I mean, just write normal in exam. Don't use capital letters like this. Systematic risk. For you, I am writing, so you remember this. Okay. Now see, this is the answer for first part of the question. Remember, they asked you what is the importance of beta in CAPM? So we explained it, that they adjust the systematic risk. And then they say, what is the importance of beta in the company's cost of capital? So basically same thing, but you can write in a more better way that, okay, beta incorporates, right, the equity risk portion, because beta talks about equity risk. Please note, it's called beta equity. What it's called? Beta equity. There is nothing called beta debt. Remember, huh? It's called beta equity. Why? Because it is incorporating the equity risk portion of proposed new project. Okay, in this case they it's same actually, one, because they are assuming that the new project is having the same types of characteristics as the current projects. That's why they are using 1. If not, for example, they say the new proposed project is more risky, so definitely it will be 1.2, 1.5, like that. They say, okay, the proposed project is less risky, so you will say, okay, 0.8, 0.7, like this you will use the beta. I hope everyone is okay with this. So see, this is how we will write it. We write like this. See, beta equity, small e. Getting the story? Like this. Please write yes, yes in the chat box if everything is okay. So we have done 3 requirements and we are now on the 4th one. Very nice. So my friends, what is the 4th requirement? They are saying explain the importance of changes in net working capital. I hope you remember this concept in investment decisions when we did. And identify which project time period is may be affected by changes in working capital. Can anyone tell me this, if you remember? So if you remember, we used to do cash flow analysis, right? We used to write, okay, at year 0, this is the investment. At year 1, these are the inflows. Year 2, these are the inflows. Year 3, these are the inflows. This is the depreciation yield, remember? Sorry, depreciation shield, not yield. And we adjusted working capital also, remember? Now working capital will come where? In year 0, in year 1, in year 2, in year 3. Which year working capital will come, remember? Anyone? Okay, let me tell you. Working capital will come most significantly at the initial stage. Of course, you are starting a project, you need working capital at that time. So you will inject working capital at year 0. Getting the story, my friends? Year 0, not year 1. You will inject the working capital at year 0. And it will be released for you at the end of the project. If 3-year project, at the end of the project, it will be released for you. So in the calculation, if you remember, we used to write minus figure in year 0 for working capital and plus figure, same figure, plus in year 3, year 4, whatever is the duration of the project. Getting the story? So this is the answer for this question, that which time period may be affected. So first of all, you will say the importance. Let's see the importance. Okay. So what is the importance? I mean, why we need working capital to handle a new project? Of course, we need it. Like you need working capital to run your existing operations, you need working capital to run a new project also, because your payables will arise, your receivable will arise, your inventory will arise, prepayments will come, accruals will come. So you will say, as the new projects, okay, are accepted, there will be change to the business, right? To the business. structure, because there will likely be changes required in the amount of working capital needed to support these changes. Right or not? Simple. So for example, you are living alone in a villa, and there is 2-story villa. Your brother came, okay? He's looking for a job. So you said, no problem, you live upstairs. Upstairs empty, right? And in the meantime, you look for a job. So the amount which you were using during the month for your food, day-to-day expenses, will it be increased or not? Or your brother and his family, if family is also coming to you, so they will adjust in your budget. Difficult, right? So you will increase your working capital. This is a simple example I'm giving you. Similarly, when you will take up a new project, there will be payable, receivable, inventory. You have to handle it. To handle it, you cannot use your existing working capital. You have to increase it. Okay, my friends. Anyways, so now you will tell them, because this is half answer. They asked you, explain the importance of changes in working capital. We told them, see, when you will accept new projects, you need to increase your working capital. It's a requirement. By the way, in corporate finance, there is a chapter on working capital which is coming ahead. Okay, in corporate finance, there is a chapter on working capital which is called managing current assets and current liabilities, like that. Now we are telling them, identify which time period this may be affected. Very nice, simple question. So you will say that the changes, okay, tend to be most significant, right, at the initiation, because you need at the very start, you need to inject, right, which is called period 0, means right now, and termination, when the project will be finished. So see, I wrote most significant. It means not always. You are telling the examiner not always, but most significant portion is at year 0 and at the end of the project. Now it is quite possible that you say, okay, after 2 years, there will be further injection, further addition of working capital needed. Why? Because after 2 years, growth stage will come, and the sales will shoot up, and we need at that time to inject more working capital, because there will be more receivables, more payables, more inventory. Getting the story? So when you make the models, you create your cash flows, you have to write additional working capital there. So for example, initiation, you say, I need 500,000. After 2 years, you need 200,000. At termination, how much will be released? 500,000, 200,000, or 700,000? Can you tell me? Yeah, you got my point or not? I'm saying right now at year 0, I need working capital 500,000. After 2 years, I will add further working capital because of the need of the project, 200,000. Okay, assume this is 5-year project. So in the 5th year, how much will be released? How much I will get back? How much I should get back? Very nice. You will get 700,000. Okay, so in your working, what you will show, you will say in year 0 minus 500,000, year 2 minus 200,000, year 7 or year 5 plus 700,000, because it will be released. This is called release of working capital. Getting the story, everyone? So you can write here for them that if the sales are expected to increase year by year, because if you remember, we did those questions in investment decisions. So there we take an assumption every year same amount of revenue will come. If you remember, we used annuity table. Why we used annuity table? Because we are saying same amount will come every year. Remember, maybe 2 million every year it will come. So this is not a good assumption, but in exam questions you can have it anyways, because you are expecting to increase revenue year by year. So there will be a growth factor, percentage, maybe 2%, 5%, 10%, whatever it is. So if you are expecting that sales will increase year on year, your working capital should also increase as per the sales, or not? Tell me in the chat box. It makes sense or not? In that case, you cannot say that, okay, at year 0 I will inject this much and at termination I will get release. No, you have to inject as per your increase in revenue. You have to adjust your working capital also, right? But the most significant will come in year 0, which is your major amount. Okay, so you will say year by year the change in working capital okay have to be adjusted also, okay, or accordingly you can write like that. Got the point? This is the answer for question number 4. Please write yes in the chat box if everything is okay. Now see, what is question number 5? Let's see question number 5. They are saying explain how depreciation and income tax affect cash flows in the capital budget for a project. See, by the way, we are not doing corporate finance. This question is a combination of corporate finance and investment decisions. So I can say, starting from here, 4, 5, 6, 7. These requirements are from investment decisions which we have already done. Requirement 1, 2, 3 are from corporate finance. I hope you can relate to those topics. Okay. So if you remember, we did MCQs in investment decisions. Remember, we used to calculate depreciation, tax, shield, all those things, income tax affect cash flows. So can you tell me, anyone, how depreciation and tax will affect my cash flows? So very simple. Remember, what is depreciation? What is depreciation, my friends? So you can make 2 headings, depreciation and tax. The more headings you may make, good for you to tackle the answer. So you can write, okay, it is a non-cash item or not. So if it is a non-cash item, we will use it in cash flow calculation or not? Can anyone tell me? It's a non-cash item. We will use it. Very nice. Excellent. Okay. Don't write we will not use it. We have to use it. How we will use it? Remember? Because it will affect the taxation. Depreciation will affect the taxation. How it will affect the taxation? I told you. You are saying, okay, I will depreciate the machinery 3 years. Tax people saying, no, you depreciate the machinery 5 years, or vice versa. You saying, okay, I will depreciate the machine 5 years. This is called accounting depreciation. Tax people saying, no, you depreciate the machinery 3 years. This is called tax depreciation, which is also called capital allowance, right? So the depreciation amount will be taken as per tax depreciation, not accounting depreciation, when you are doing this cash flow analysis, because you need to make sure that the tax amount which you are writing is as correct as possible. Okay. So then over 3 years you will take, or over 5 years you will take the tax depreciation, and you will get shield in response, because you know they don't tax depreciation. It's an allowable expense. I mean, depreciation is not allowable expense. I mean, accounting depreciation is not allowed. They give their own depreciation. That is allowed. That can be a different rate every year. Okay, so you will write here, it is a non-cash expense. By itself, we don't take it, but we have to consider the tax shield. I mean, the tax relief which will come from that depreciation. Okay, it will affect the cash flows. Okay, by directly influencing the cash outflow for tax paid. Okay, so I mean, depreciation will affect the tax paid amount. Okay, so this you told them, and you can also tell them it will and there can be difference because of differences between accounting, which is also called book depreciation, and tax depreciation. Got the point, everyone? What about tax? Yeah, they are included in capital budget also. Included in capital budgeting. Of course, you have to include them. Because you know, you will say, okay, every year I am getting this much of revenue or profitability, whatever is coming, and that you have to apply the tax rate. So taxable earning has to be multiplied with the tax rate. Okay. Why? To determine the estimate of the tax expense, right? Of the tax payable, or whatever you can write here. Okay. Please write yes in the chat box if it is okay with you. This, like this, you can write in exam. Make a paragraph in exam. Don't write like this. Okay. Very nice. Let's see what is question number 6. They say, identify and explain one method Chen can use to account for uncertainty in the cash flow forecasts. One method, uncertainty in the cash flow forecasts. Okay. I remember this question was also there in one of the investment decisions essay questions which we did. And for that purpose, I have also added here for you those notes. These are from your book. Okay. So basically, you know, the answer of this question, one method to account for uncertainty. So you can see here, we already discussed it before, just now when I was telling you about systematic and unsystematic risk. So see, you want to tackle uncertainty. So what you will do, you can do risk adjusted discount rates. You can do certainty equivalent adjustments. Both methods are possible. Okay. In your book, you will find more methods, you know, sensitivity analysis, simulation techniques, Monte Carlo simulation, all these things you will find there. Okay. So I took these two from there. Risk adjusted discount rate is very simple. You know this already. I told you, if the project is more risky, so you will apply the beta factor and your discount rate will be updated. If the project is less risky, again you will apply the beta factor, which will be less, and you will get your hurdle rate updated. Okay. So if you want, you can write this as an answer. In the official answer, if you will see, they are talking about the certainty equivalent adjustment. Okay. So this is what they are saying. They are saying, you will assign probabilities, you will you to specific scenarios, the cash flows resulting from those scenarios, you know. So they say a certainty equivalent approach could be used. This is written in your official answer. That's why I gave you this notes here. So you can take from here. So this technique is, if you read here, they say this technique is directly drawn from the concept of utility theory. Okay, utility theory is in economics if you have studied. If not, no problem. Don't worry about it so much. It forces the decision maker to specify at what point the firm is indifferent. I remember we did this indifference thing in decision analysis. Remember we did some questions where they say, okay, at what point they are indifferent, how many units they want to sell, and they are indifferent whether to, I mean, produce the product or purchase and sell the product. Remember we did these types of MCQs and essay questions in decision analysis. We did indifferent means you don't care. I mean, either this thing happen or this thing happen, I don't care, right? So that point is called indifferent point. So the technique is not frequently used because decision makers are not familiar with this concept. So this is basically written in your book. Okay, so what I prefer is you don't mention about it because they are themselves telling you it's not frequently used, so don't worry about this. What is this certainty equivalent adjustment? So what you should remember, you can use this above thing, which is risk adjusted discount rates, and that is more than enough to write in this question. Okay, so you can write about risk adjusted discount rates to tackle uncertainty. Okay, we already discussed, right? Uncertainty means like the systematic risk, and how to tackle systematic risk by incorporating beta. Okay, please write yes in the chat box if everything is okay. And then finally they are asking about post completion audit and what is the role of post audit in the capital budgeting process. Very simple question. Okay, assume you are sitting in exam and you didn't read the book properly and you got this requirement. What you will do? Can you write? It's very simple. What do you mean by post completion audit? Of course you will say the project has been finished and we want to do audit whether the project was completed on time, as per schedule, as per the cost, how many variations are there, why the variations were there, why site instructions were issued. All these things you will check, right? Why the project was delayed, what are the non-conformance points, quality issues, how much fatality was there, all these things. So you will take some lessons learned out of that post completion audit. What the point, everyone? So you can write about it a little bit, that what is a post completion audit. First of all, we will write it. Okay, this is your homework. I already told you what to write in this one, 7. So post completion audit, you can say, okay, it is a set of procedures, right, where you evaluate the results of what, of project, right, to see how closely the actual results, okay, are compared with the original estimates, right? I mean, you will say, okay, the contract was maybe 1 billion. Actually, we finalized maybe 1.2 billion. Why more? You can identify forecasting weaknesses here, because remember, when we awarded the contract at that time, we thought the project can be completed within 1 billion. But at the end, we got to know it's not 1 billion, it's 1.2 billion. It means we didn't forecast properly. So you can check, and for the next project you can keep those things in mind, if any lessons learned. Okay, one more thing, see, this is about post completion audit. Now they are saying you, what is the role, I mean, why you need this audit in capital budgeting process? Of course, this is what we already wrote here, and I mean, this is the role, by the way. If I write here, this is the role. But apart from this, there is one more thing, that managers are aware. I mean, project manager, supervision consultant, whoever it is. So they are aware that audits will be done. So what will happen? I mean, if you know that audit will be done, if you talk about external audit, internal audit, compliance audit, any other audit, so people, they have some pressure, or not? Tell me in the chat box, yes or no? So they will take more care or not? In their initial assumptions, right, and estimates, because remember, initially we have some estimates. So remember budget slack. In part 1 we talk about budget slack. So what is budget slack? Managers, they try to make the budget easy for them to achieve. So they overstate their expenses, and they understate the revenues by adjusting the assumptions. So they say, no, because of corona, sales will be very less next year, and this and that. Like this, they will finalize the budget. Actually, the sales, they shoot up, and they achieve the budget by a big amount, and they will get bonus, by the way, right or not, everyone? So this is why what we do, remember, we do zero-based budgeting, we incorporate learning curve, right? And we use authoritative budgeting, remember? So to avoid them incorporating the budget slack. So same here, I mean, if they are aware that we will be audited later on, so initial assumptions and estimates, they will try to keep them reasonable. Okay, and also they will be more careful in handling the completion, in handling the project itself, I mean, so that it can be completed on time. There is no excessive delay which they cannot justify later on. So this is this essay question 2.14 completion. I hope it's clear with everyone. So this is the completion of this scenario.